Hello everybody and welcome to our spell writing class. Today I wanted to go ahead and go over just a couple of different things and different aspects to spell writing. Now the reason I am covering spell writing in this group is because I've noticed throughout the years that a lot of people don't know how to write spells. And they think that it is perfectly acceptable to go on to Pinterest or pull a spell out of a book. And in most cases, that would be useful for greater inspiration. However, the spells that are pre-written by another person have that other person's intention in mind, and they don't necessarily have the intention that you have behind what you want set. So say you're like, well, I need a protection spell. Okay, well, let's search Pinterest. We go to Pinterest and we pull up a protection spell. Someone else wrote it. You don't know what kind of protection that person was actually writing about. You don't know why they had that type of protection or those words inside of that spell. And that goes across many different traditions and all kinds of other things. And of course, those spells have worked for those other people, so they're like, well, okay, well, this works for me. I'm going to go ahead and tell you what I said and all this other stuff. And I've provided spells and stuff like that for other people as well. But I always tell people that it's important for them to modify the spells that they're utilizing by other people, because your energy comes out of your body. It comes out of your mouth. It comes out of your whatever you write. So what you put out is what's going to have your energy into it. Now, just because you're speaking the words of somebody else doesn't necessarily mean that that person has your same intentions. So, because we are vastly losing spell writing due to lack of poetry teaching and other concepts and things just being readily available with instant gratification that we all dearly love, I wanted to take some time and address it. So, I know you're looking at a board right here. You can't see me. You can just hear me. I'm so sorry about that. But I wanted to break this series up into several days, in part so that you could follow along and I can provide you with all the information that I have on what I personally do for writing spells. Okay, so this section, day one, is going to be broken down into 3 parts. We're going to talk about ethics, which is here, and then we're going to talk about our intentions, and then we're going to talk about our whys. Because you can have all the intentions in the world, but if you don't have a solid, solidified reason for what you're doing, you probably shouldn't be doing it. So, let's go ahead and get started. So, I went to college for a long time. And I'm not quite done yet. I still have 7 classes left on my health degree that I am scrounging up money to try and finish. In the meantime, I'm taking other online courses as well. But I landed into several different ethics classes, and I will tell you that there are a vast amount of different types of ethical theories, okay? And then there's also a vast amount of different ways that you can apply each one of these theories to whatever it is you're doing. So for this particular class, we're not going to talk about one way or another. I'm going to try and explain to you how ethics are developed and how you can apply them inside of your spell writing. So, yes, traditions say that in Wicca, traditions say that, karma, whatever you put out comes back. Some people don't believe that. There's lots of different forms and reasons and aspects that people will like to try and tell you are super important. And the reality is that this is your own personal practice. Yes, it's important to learn from the past and learn from other people, because that is some tradition that can enhance your particular study, your particular path, your particular way of doing things. Or you don't have to have them, but you can create. Just like you can create your own ethical standpoint, you can create your own spells, you can practice magic the way you want to practice. You can feel comfortable in exactly that. So, I'm going to go ahead and cover four of the top ethical standpoints and how they apply to practicing magic. So, I'm going to go ahead and start with Deontology, which is over here. Okay, Deontology is the ethical theory that places emphasis on relationships between duty and morality of human action. Okay, so this abides by all the rules according to the law and what society has set, and there isn't a way to break them. So, like, there's no breaking the rules. If it says 35 miles an hour, you're doing 35 miles an hour. Why? Because to do 36 miles an hour means you're breaking the rules, and that falls outside of Deontology. So, there is no exception on that. The second part of Deontology considers morality or choices according to the rules set in place. So, if you did 36 miles an hour in a 35 mile an hour zone, you're cheating or you're lying. And that's a moral that is broken based on Deontology and not following the rules. So, an example of how you could apply this to practice in magic is to only practice magic that harms none. That's a very, very common rule amongst Wicca. The whole idea is you don't practice anything that harms anybody. So if I was a deontologist and I followed this rule, okay, and in my past, my family is very much rule-based, and then I realized that I could change things up a little bit after I went through school. So Wicca will sit down and tell you that that's not a rule you can break. That's just not a rule you can break. So you can't harm anybody. So that severely limits the type of magic that you can practice or even write spells for. So you can either abide by it or not. That is how Deontology works in regards to magic. Now, I'm going to go through as a kind of short list all of these because they're really in depth and they're really complicated. So I'm kind of trying to give you a brief overview of how they work. So Eudataratism, this one right here, okay, is the ethical theory that determines right from wrong based on the potential outcome under what might be the most ethical choice that benefits the greatest number of people or the greater whole. Okay, so we can apply this to karma theory right here, okay, because we know that under karma, whatever we put out, we get back. So if you put out something negative, you're going to get something negative. If you put out something positive, you'll get something positive. Generally, it's said to be done in threefold, meaning whatever you put out comes back to you 3 times what you put out. So that concept is similar to Eudataratism. Okay, one, it evaluates the outcome of choices before making the choice. So if you're going to write a spell, you're going to want to look at how this spell might affect the greater whole. And is that worth the effort? It also evaluates if the choice benefits the highest number of people. So if you're writing a spell for success, is that selfish? Or is that okay? Are you benefiting, or does everybody else benefit from it? You have to, it's a more complex way of thinking. And utilizing this theory can definitely cause some challenges. An example would be practice magic if it doesn't harm anyone and benefits everyone. So that is how you look at Eudataratism. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to virtues. Okay, I don't know if you guys are familiar with virtues: honesty, loyalty, humility, bravery, courage. You know, the list goes on of the different virtues. This was actually developed by Aristotle in the early ancient Greeks, whereas Deontology is developed by Kant. in the 1800s. So this one here is the ethical theory that is based on virtuous behavior and character. Okay, so this is done by applying virtues to become the example of a moral character. So you want to encompass morality. So you want to encompass honesty. You want to encompass humility. You want to encompass loyalty. And you want to encompass those types of virtues into your being. Okay, and then it also considers the actions based on virtuous behavior. So if you approach some situation ethically, you might consider your character. Are you so and so, and would you be so and so if you created or utilized this action per se? And applying that to magic would be practicing magic so long as it doesn't violate or entail breaking trust, loyalty, humility, generosity, honesty, or kindness. Of course, there are a list of 40 different virtues, so this can be quite extensive and also limits you on many different angles as well when it comes to practicing magic. Personally, I do apply some virtue, I do apply some Unitarianism, and I do apply some Deontology. So like for me personally, I kind of mix and match a little bit of everything so that I can apply it situationally according to what I'm doing. And I don't find that there's anything wrong with that. Finally, we have relativism. Okay, this theory is a very unique, interesting theory, as it is an ethical theory that morals and principles are set according to the culture or society they reside in. That means that it could be morals set by your family, it could be morals set by the city you live in, it could be morals set by the tribe you live in, it could be or whatever culture. It's culture based. Okay, now they have a couple of different ways that this is considered. One, they consider where you are and how you are raised. Two, it doesn't apply a universal moral concept like the other three do. Okay, so that means that you can practice your morals one way under your society, and another society can practice their morals however they practice theirs. So there isn't like an overlap between both types of universal and non-universal ethical standpoints. Also, relativism doesn't pass along judgment of others' morals or ethical systems. So basically, it says if people in Greece are gonna practice morals this way, then that's how they're gonna practice them. And if maybe say bribery is totally chill over there, and that's something that's accepted by the society, they can do that. But say, I don't know, America decides that bribery is not cool, and that, that's not something that they're okay with in their society, then people over in Greece are not going to condone the people in America for, believing whatever they want to believe and applying their ethics however they want to apply them. It's basically saying, you do you, I'll do me, kind of an ethical system. Okay, the example of this for magic is practice magic according to how your culture/society dictates and do not condone the ethics of another. This is a very judgeless system for ethics. So, as you can see, all four ethical types are vastly different, but can be encompassed universally together, assuming you want to apply them situationally. You don't necessarily need to be one way or another. But what I've noticed is that there's a lot of people who don't understand exactly what someone says what someone means when you say, hey, what are your ethics or what are your morals? They kind of have this deer in headlights look and be like, I don't really know. Okay, well that's okay that you don't really know. So I'm trying to help you understand what I mean by ethics, and how you apply your ethics in your magic. Now, I understand that a lot of people will pick up a book and go, well, this is the way I need to follow this tradition. Okay, that's fine as well. You can follow a tradition if you choose to follow a tradition. But if you choose to create your own tradition, you don't need to follow the traditions of other people. Okay, that includes the ethics in which they stand by. I understand that I'll probably piss a lot of people off by saying this, but some people don't believe in karma. Some people don't believe in certain things, and that is totally okay. Because when it comes to practicing magic, it's incredibly personal. Incredibly personal. And what you do is yours. And yours alone. And it does not matter what the next person next to you says about what you're doing. Because so long as you have done your research, tested out your things, and worked yourself into a point where you feel comfortable creating and writing spells, then you can absolutely do that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move this so you guys can see me. Just give me just a second. Put my jacket on. It's cold in here, so anyways. Hi everybody, how are you? Alright, so what I want to do here is talk about the next couple of things that I have on the list for today's session. We're going to talk about creating our, I guess we can call it like a brainstorm, okay? You know, when you go into those writing classes, like in school, they tell you, oh, okay, we'll set up this thing that tells you, you know, circle here, one here, and here's your different ideas. Well, it's kind of like that, except I work a little bit differently. So I created this thing called an intention thought board, okay? And on the intention thought board, we cover 3 areas, okay? The first area here is what we're working on today. Is going to be, what are your intentions, and then why do I want these intentions? Okay, so in the unit section, I have added two PDFs. One is labeled what is my why behind my intentions and what are my intentions. So go ahead and take a moment to pull up the first one, which is what is my intentions. Okay, give me a second, and I'm going to go ahead and pull mine up so I can follow along with you guys. And I can help you explain this just a little bit better. If my kid comes in, I'm sorry. Okay, so the first part of the unit, it says, what are my reasons for writing this spell? Okay, so you'll pull that up and you'll take a look at it. It says right here on the top, it says take a moment to think about everything that surrounds the reasons that you want to write a spell. Okay, and then take some time. I put on the paper a pretty large list of bullet points with lines. Okay, and this says take some time to jot down each part of your reason in a bullet point. Okay, so if you have an intention that you wanna, I don't know, you wanna create something or you wanna manifest something. Okay, whatever that something is, dissect what it is. Okay, what parts of what pieces, what things are all needed for the intention. So if your intention is to create a spell for prosperity, okay, what prosperity are we talking about? Do we want money? Do we want happiness? Do we want a house? Do we want, you know, all of those different aspects inside of the spell? Go ahead and write them all down in bullet points. Just write them all out, okay? And then it says to take some time to consider all aspects of the situation. Write down even the most mundane parts, as they may contribute to feelings that can affect the outcome of what you create. Write down the feelings you have behind all of them so that you can view your entire intention from an outside perspective. It's like, okay, well, my intention's in here, well, now it's on here. So that's basically what you're doing, is you're pulling out your thoughts and all your intentions and parts and pieces and putting it onto a piece of paper that says, hey, this is what everything is. Okay, and then you can see it from an outside perspective. Now you're probably going, why? Well, as we go through this process, that will become self-explanatory. So At the bottom of this page, it specifically asks you, how do you feel about the situation you're working magic for? So that is going to prompt you to take a look at what you're doing. Okay? How are you feeling about it? Okay, so if you've been scorned, like scorned hardcore by somebody, then write that feeling down. Like, are you making your magic in relation to how you feel? What parts of that feelings are going to influence what you're doing? So all of that, just pull it out of you and put it on paper. Write it down, step by step by step by step, piece by piece by piece by piece, and attach your feelings to it, so that you can see what your goals are. Okay. And feel free, if you guys have an interest, feel free to post these as either a file or a photo or whatever you want to do. You can post them to the units if you choose to share them. I'm not requiring anybody to share them, but if you have any questions, go ahead and jot your questions down, pop them up in the unit section or under the video. However you want to do it, you can go ahead and pop them up, and we can talk about them if you're really interested in doing that. So, finally, in this part of today's lesson, I want to talk about your why. Okay. So, with every intention that you have, there's a reason behind it. Okay? So you wrote out all these different intentions. You wrote out all these different places. You're like, okay, well, great. I have them all on paper. That's wonderful. What the hell do I do with them? Now you're going to take those. You're going to pull it out, that paper that you just filled out. And if this takes you a couple of days to do, that's totally okay. It's not something that's supposed to be done like all instantaneously and stuff. It's not necessarily. It doesn't necessarily even work that way. If you want to create a really good spell, time and effort is generally required. So, on the second PDF that I have up for today's lesson is called, What is my why behind the reasons I have? Okay, so let's take a moment and think about all the reasons that you jotted in your intention. Well, what are my intentions? That worksheet, okay? And then what I want you to do now is think about how you feel about them and consider the foundations behind what those are. Free write your answers to the following questions. And I'll go ahead and talk to you about the different questions that I have put in here. So the first question that I'm going to ask you in regards to your why behind your intentions is, what is the point behind my reasons? It's a pretty blatant question. What's the point? Okay? So that's just free write. What is it? What's your point? It could be anything, okay? Because you're a person, and I'm a person, and the next person's a person, and all of us don't have the same thoughts. And we also don't have the same reasons behind our thoughts, or the ethics that go along with them. So go ahead and take some time to write out what the point is behind your intentions. After that, it's going to ask you, how will this help or hurt the overall intent, and will I learn or gain anything from what I do? It's a pretty straightforward question. Okay, so you'll look at your intentions, you look at what you want to set, and then you'll answer the question according to how you perceive it. I'm not asking you to answer the question from how your neighbor perceives it. I'm not asking you to answer the question according to how your city perceives it. I'm asking you to answer the question according to how you perceive it. Do you gain anything? Do you learn anything? Are you hurting anybody? Are you helping somebody? These are just questions to help you define your why behind your intentions, so that you can grow a really firm spell that will work specifically the way that you want it to work. Following that, the next question is, does any of my reasons violate my own personal ethical system? If so, how? Okay, well, we covered 4 different types of ethical standpoints in here, and of course these are not just the only ones that exist. We have care ethics, we have all kinds of other ethics, but these are not just the only ones that exist. These are kind of the top ones that almost everybody kind of understands. So, evaluate your ethics for a minute. What do you believe? Do you believe in karma? Do you believe in the threefold theory? Do you believe that you have to follow the rules? Do you believe that, what you do has to be in the greatest good of all? Do you believe that you have to be a virtuous character in order to create your spell? Does your spell have to be virtuous? Does your spell is your spell your own? Like, is it your own particular set of ethics? I mean, how do you evaluate your ethics? Then look at what you wrote for your intentions, look at your reasons so far, and then ask yourself if you violated yourself. And it's that simple. So take a minute to consider that and determine if that is. And if you did, write out why. At the end of these exercises, you're going to look at your paper and you're going to be able to see, and you'll be able to modify your intentions according to how they fit with you. Not with another person, not with a tradition, but personally with you. Okay. So then we're going to go ahead and I'm going to ask a couple more questions. Am I willing to accept what comes from my actions, and how do I feel about what that might be? This is an area where I put in Eudataratism. I'm asking you to consider cause and effect. You might not believe in cause and effect. That's okay. But scientifically, from my perspective, I'm putting that in there because you have an intention that you want to set out. Okay? So, what do you think is going to happen? What do you want to happen? How do you expect this to see? What do you think is going to happen? All of those aspects inside of writing your spell and creating your understanding for why you have intentions are kind of important. So take a minute to consider if you're going to accept what you're going to do. Be okay with any absolutes that might come from, putting out something into the universe. Because according to science, what stays in motion, what is in motion stays in motion unless something is acted upon it in a negative way or acted back on it. So my theory is that what you put out is going to go, and it's going to have an effect on something. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to enact karma or any of the other theories that you may or may not believe. Okay? But you can still consider the possibilities of what might come from it and be ethically responsible. Finally, I'm going to ask you, how do you feel about the situation? Does this have anything to do with why I want to write a spell? So I asked you in your intentions if you had how you felt about your intentions. Now in your why, I'm asking you again how you feel about the situation. It's a little bit different. So in the first part, you were introduced to your feelings regarding your intentions. Okay. Well, now I want you to think about the situation in which you're writing the spell for. Okay. Well, how do you feel about that? Now, the reason I consider these is because when you're creating a spell, okay, your emotions are really important. They create a vibration. Okay. Now, you can put whatever you want out into the universe, but if you're not balanced, it might not be so balanced. If you're overly emotional, it might be too strong. So these are things that I want you to kind of consider. Okay, write them all down. This way you'll have complete intention understanding and a complete why understanding on what you want to do. And from there you can modify it and tweak it and make things perfect for you. So right at the end of this worksheet, it says, is there anything else I need to add? Now, you've gone through both of the worksheets and you've thoroughly filled them out, and then right at the end you're like, well, maybe I need to do this. Okay, well, jot those down in there. Jot out the different things that maybe came to mind after going through this exercise, and put it in there. So that's going to be a wrap for today. Okay, I'm going to move into tomorrow. What did I say tomorrow was going to be? Tomorrow we're going to do the second half of the sheets right here. How do I want this to manifest, and how long do I want this to take? Okay, so in this particular section, we're going to talk about specifics. Okay, so we can specify how we want the spell to look. We can specify how we want the spell to act. We can specify how long it takes the spell to manifest. And I will go into depth on how this part of the intention topper works tomorrow. So for tonight, go ahead and take some time and work through these worksheets and post into the units. Let's start up a conversation. Let's get to talking about how this works. We can toss around other ethical ideas and people's viewpoints. I do expect that everybody is respectful, because again, you're a person, I'm a person, they're a person, there's another person. We're all different. We don't all live by the same things. We don't all follow the same traditions, and that is totally okay. Okay, and I don't want to have anybody hurting other people because they think that theirs is the best, or that this happens, or whatever. Because again, I have in this book, right, I have 4 traditions right here. 4. Okay, this has its own ethical system. This has its own ethical system. Sorry, not 4. I have 3, because this is just an extension. 3. This has its own ethical system. This has its own ethical system. This has its own ethical system. Now, they're all different. They all have different traditions. They all have different ways of practice. They all have different things that they understand. Now, that's the same as people. So it's okay if you don't fit inside of one tradition. Nobody asked you to. So let's hope that we can all be respectful of each other, and we can start to learn through the different ways people write their spells. Now, if you have a way that you write your spells that is completely different from mine, and you want to share that, share it. Just go ahead and share it. Why? Because that's something else that we can learn from. So just remember, respect is super important. Okay, being nice is super important. Okay, and I don't want to throw ethics at you, but those are my 2 ethics when it comes to learning about different things and writing different spells. And I understand that a lot of people think that they should be a certain level before they write spells, but that doesn't stop you from learning how to write spells. So on day 3, we're going to get into the actual writing process of writing spells. And then on day 4, I'm going to pull up some spell writing practices or some prompts so that you can have a look at testing out a couple of different things. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean you need to cast the spell. This here is just to learn how to write them, so that when you are absolutely ready of your own accord, you can have no problems writing a spell, not need to worry about going to Pinterest or something else, or you can feel confident in yourself and write your own magic. Okay, guys, I hope you all have a wonderful night. Thank you all for joining me. I do appreciate you all, and thank you so much. I'm working on getting back. You all have a wonderful, wonderful night.